Chapter 3. A scream awoke Talon. She sat up with a jerk. Where was she? When the dream's stupor faded a little, she realized she was the one who had screamed. Talon, what's wrong? Rama's low, soothing voice helped Talon focus and remember where she was. She'd been lying on the floor of the wagon, more a little box-like house on wheels. They'd been traveling in this wagon for the past week, headed for Talon's hometown, Forest Edge. Talon and Rama sat on a pallet of soft furs and pillows. Rama's hair gleamed like gold, even in the dim sunlight that streamed through the wagon window. "How much farther?" Talon asked, blinking heavily as the wagon lurched over another rock and thudded back on the ground. Rama winced. "Not sure, but for me, I don't think we can get to this town of yours fast enough, and after we convince enough people there to approach the Whitestone Council, no more traveling for me. I am so very tired of living without luxuries." Talon stifled a laugh as she looked around the wagon she and Rama shared. It was a good thing that clerics like herself didn't accumulate many possessions, because there was barely room for Talon's few belongings amid Rama's spell books, magical artifacts, and numerous outfits. Talon never knew that there were so many shades of white until she saw Rama's wardrobe. Bored, Talon took out the jewel that Ellison had given to her and examined it yet again. In the wagon's dim light it looked utterly unremarkable. The metal was so tarnished it resembled wrought iron, and none of the jewels sparkled at all. "Still no idea why Ellison gave that to you?" Rama asked, leaning over Talon's shoulder to peer at it. "Looks like it's spent the last 100 years under the sea." "No idea at all." Talon gave the jewel one last look, then tucked it back into her pouch. "I wish he hadn't been so cryptic." "I've been scouring my books, but still haven't found anything on it," Rama said, picking up another book and flipping through it. "I just can't shake the feeling that I've seen it before." "I don't know where you could have, but keep looking," Talon said. "It must have some importance, and for Reverend Son Elston to give me something like this puzzles me." Rama nodded, settled back on a cushion, and began reading. At midday they stopped for a meal, setting up a small cook fire and roasting a brace of rabbits Elred had caught during the morning journey. Elred's family, part wild Cagonesti elves and part Argothian sailors, had often had to live off the land, and his hunting skills served the journey well. The entire group now numbered about 20 people, all of them from humble backgrounds, like Talon and Elred, with the exception of Rama, Rogan, and a couple of Rogan's friends. Their food supplies had to stretch further now that they needed on the journey to Palanthas. Despite worries about the food supply, Talon couldn't help but obsess over recruitment. As she chewed a piece of stale jerky, she hoped they could get enough followers in Forest Edge. As if reading her thoughts, Elred said, "Perhaps we could go to my mother's homeland after this. The Conesti might be willing to support the heirs of Huma." "But why would the elves help us?" Rama asked. "We're mostly a human group, after all." Talon glared at her. "We have to try. This is far too important." "Indeed," Rogan said, sitting down on a tree stump. His bulky armor made it too difficult to sit on the ground. "I think I may return to Palanthas after we visit Forest Edge." "Return?" Elred scoffed. "They'll have your head on a pike." "Not if I do it right," Rogan said. "If I approach each knight alone, not in public, I could show him what the dragons have done to the knighthood, thrown it into disarray by people of lesser bloodlines and power." Rogan shook his head. "If my father were alive, he'd help us. He spoke out against trusting the silver dragons when they first returned. Because of them, our uncle Derek and our father and so many others lost their power in the knighthood." Elred and Talon exchanged glances. Although Rogan and Rama had proved valuable in gaining the support of some nobles, Rogan often went off like this, raving about the destruction of the knighthood. Talon's only tactic up to this point had been to just nod and change the subject as soon as possible, but it was getting worse and she was starting to worry. "We should move out," Elred said. "We can reach the village in an hour or two if we keep up the pace." Talon didn't return to the wagon with Rama, but instead walked with Eret on the ever steeper road. It was easier to climb over and around the rocks than to be jostled by riding over them in the wagon. She also wanted to see her village the moment it was within sight. It was still bright mid-afternoon when she saw Forest Edge for the first time in a year. When Talon left home, they had just begun to rebuild from the sorceress Asperadia's destruction. It now looked like the villagers had rebuilt most of the major buildings, such as the store and the blacksmith's forge, in the same locations. They had reconstructed many of the houses as well, but so few compared to the number that filled the village before the dragon came. Looking around, Talon could see why. Despite the village's seeming recovery, so many familiar faces were gone forever, including her brother Briggs. The last thing Talon had seen before her world changed forever was a copper dragon. Immediately after she and her brother spotted it blotting out the sun, the ground beneath them erupted and Briggs was slain by a giant zombie worm, controlled by that copper dragon. Talon had escaped and raised the alarm at the village. The warning was too late for Briggs, though. Elric laid a hand on Talon's shoulder. "Will you be all right?" Talon nodded, blinking quickly so the others would not see her tears. Her village was returning to normal. She should be thankful for that. She shouldn't dwell in the past. Everywhere she looked, people were hard at work building. Her parents still lived. Elred had no home and no parents. Both were now at the bottom of the Blood Sea. "You go visit first, Talon," Elred said. "The rest of us will set up camp here." Already Rogan was settling the wagon in a secure spot under a cluster of trees, while Rama uses her magic to light a fire. Talon flashed a quick smile at Elric, then walked up the dirt path toward home. Before the dragon, Talon's family had lived on the outskirts of the village. Her father liked being close to the forest, and Talon and Brig had spent most of their childhood running through the trees. But after their home was destroyed, Talon's parents decided to rebuild closer to the village center. More people and fewer trees around their home meant fewer reminders of Brig. It didn't matter to Talon, though. If her parents had rebuilt in the middle of Palanthus, visiting them would still bring memories of Brig flooding over her. "Talon, is that you?" A tall girl who looked to be just shy of 20 called to Talon from a vegetable garden. She walked to the garden fence, then dropped her basket of carrots and raced towards Talon. Her long blonde hair flew out behind her as she ran. "Marin!" Talon squealed as she and the other girl collided in an embrace. Marin had been Brig's closest friend his entire life. Talon used to tease Brig about being sweet on Marin, but he never gave her a straight answer. "You're a cleric," Marin said, gazing at the blue robes and medallion. "Your parents told us where you went and read parts of your letters home, but to see you—" Marin looked down at her dirt-streaked skirt and sighed. "I've never left Forest Edge. You've done so much, and it's only been a year." "I've done much more than become a cleric," Talon said. "I won't say much now, but I have something in mind that everyone in Forest Edge can do. Something that can help us recover from Asvoria's attack." A swift shadow of pain fell over Marin's face. "We are recovering, Talon," she said. "The dead were buried long ago. We're rebuilding." "I have something much more in mind," Talon said. Marin tilted her head and raised an eyebrow. Talon wanted to tell her more, but then remembered her parents. "I must go and see Mother and Father, but I'll see you again before I leave." "Of course," said Marin as she turned back to the garden. "Go spend time with your folks. We'll speak later." Marin went back to picking carrots and did not look at Talon as she journeyed down the road. Talon wondered at Marin's reaction.